Hi, I'm Callie Plaguey reading this review of Dynasty Warriors 9 for freelancer James Swinbanks. Dynasty Warriors 9 represents the biggest shift away from the series' established formula since moving from a one-on-one fighting game to its more established Musou form. While the feeling of cutting down entire formations of soldiers with a button press will feel more than familiar to fans of the series, the introduction of a massive open world changes the pacing in a way that allows the action to breathe. And although it suffers from a number of disappointing technical hitches along with some typical open world jank, Dynasty Warriors 9's sprawling campaign feels right at home in its new setting. Given that its story mode is presented unconventionally, it can take a little while to figure out precisely what's going on. The entire story of the Three Kingdoms of China is told through the eyes of over 80 separate playable characters across 4 major clans, Wei, Wu, Shu, and Jin, as well as a handful of other smaller bit players. Playing through each chapter unlocks the next one along with more characters. Seeing each battle from multiple perspectives is enthralling from a historical point of view, but it can mean playing through a lot of the same missions multiple times, which can be a little frustrating given there is little difference in the feel of any given character out on the battlefield. The open world is the big game changer here, and in so many ways it works to the game's advantage. Missions are picked up from NPCs out in the world and among the different cities that dot the landscape instead of out of a menu. Although the menu option is still there if you want to merely move from mission to mission, traveling from one area to the other gives you a chance to find peaceful moments between each battle. Your actions in the open world are also tied closely to each main quest. Completing subquests will lower the recommended character level of the main quest, so if you find a mission too difficult, you can polish off a few subquests and lower its difficulty. If you make your way off-road when moving towards the front lines, the chances are good that you'll find a dangerous group of bandits to take down, or a pack of wild deer or tigers to hunt. Although many of the optional open-world activities, like hunting or fishing, aren't especially inspiring in themselves, they net you loot you can trade for valuable goods or use as ingredients to buff your attack and defense. The world is massive and in its own way quite pretty. Its sparsity reflects the period, and the vast and varied environments flow seamlessly into one another. The day, night, and full weather cycles aren't just visual changes but also affect the action. Soldiers won't march at nighttime, and bad weather will slow them down. But overall, it also just looks plain grimy at times. Many of the game's textures appear as though they've been lathered in a thick coat of Vaseline. Cities and palaces suffer from this the most, as their elaborate architecture often fails to load with high-res textures at first, leaving them looking like big brown lumps in the world instead of beautiful ancient Chinese palaces. Aside from randomly appearing geometry, the graphical shortcomings are perhaps most noticeable in the character costumes. While character models and costume designs themselves are absolutely stunning, the textures within them lack the sort of clarity needed to work up close. This, combined with rough animations and some truly abysmal English voiceover work, make sure you switch to the Chinese voiceover immediately, make the story cutscenes a little tough to look at given the frequency with which they're shown.
The volunteer forces are to assist the Imperial Army. Do not try and be a hero.
Given the game's technical issues, it's a good thing that cutting down thousands of men in a single sitting feels as satisfying as ever. Entire squadrons can be laid to waste in mere moments. It's truly an epic power fantasy that, even after 50 hours of gameplay, continues to thrill. While the bow as well as horseback combat can be underwhelming, the melee combat remains the biggest draw and the series' strongest pillar. It does lack a certain subtle nuance in some of the later one-on-one boss battles, but 9 times out of 10, you'll come out of battle with a smile on your face.
For me!
It's clear that Koei Tecmo and Omega Force have gone back to the drawing board with Dynasty Warriors 9, and in many ways it's a big improvement on the series' mainstays. The new open-world format changes up the game in a way that helps the flow and pacing of story mode as well as its core mechanics. Sure, there are obvious graphical flaws and some more subtle issues with combat lacking finer controls, but the streamlining of countless menus of previous games into an open world and the laughably fun moment-to-moment play makes Dynasty Warriors 9 not just a must for fans, but worth a look for the merely curious.